Uh, Welcome, everyone. It's still early morning for a lot of us, so I'm very happy that you're here. I'm Jarl Schulp, I'm Artistic Director of Fiber, and I welcome you to the Grond for the opening of our two-day conference, which is always of Symposium, which is always an important part of the festival because it gives sort of the backbone story of the theme of this year, but also kind of why we are together and why it's important to experience art and culture and also talk about it and not only dance, perform and listen to it. On behalf of the Fiber team, a warm welcome to the 11th edition of Fiber Festival. It is with great pleasure to present you these 4 days filled with music, art and much more, urgent conversations about the things we do. This year's festival takes the shape around the theme Fragile Forces, emphasizing a tension that feels increasingly urgent. It's a response to the fragility of the current tension and situation as we're constantly exceeding critical thresholds, if we look at climate change, or crossing countless red lines, leaving many feeling broken, exhausted, or overwhelmed. Yet fragility can also describe the conditions of making sensitivity, care, interdependence, and collective attention possible. And in a moment defined by intensifying militarization, ecological breakdown, extractive technologies, and escalating political violence, we ask what kind of forces emerge when hardness no longer offers a way forward. Fiber Festival moves between artistic disciplines, communities, and ways of sensing the world. This edition brings together artists and thinkers who thread fragility as a condition for resistance and reimagining. To see fragility as a strength, as I said, and not as a weakness. At the same time, it's difficult to speak about gathering without acknowledging the wider reality around us. The ongoing genocide in Gaza and the attacks on Lebanon, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the wars and displacement across multiple regions, the normalization of authoritarian politics, and the tightening link between technology, systems, surveillance, and extraction. I want to say on behalf of the whole team that we firmly stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and call for an end of the ongoing genocide and the war on Lebanon. And we are appalled by our inaction of our own government. We stand also in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and call for the end of the occupation in Ukraine. Slava Ukraini, free Palestine. We believe in the importance of coming together and remaining attentive to one another through sound, art, conversation, and shared presence. The Fiber Festival aims to provide a space to reflect on all these changes, a temporary infrastructure of resonance where alternative imaginaries can briefly emerge, to draw strength from art, music, and sound, which through fragility and vulnerability engage with subtle complexities and careful attention. Before we dive in, I have a very personal statement I'd like to share with you. Last week, the news reached us that the passing of our co-founder and dear friend Sietse van der Meer came to us the news. Sietse has been a formative and creative and artistic and above all extremely precise force in the foundational years of Fiber. He has helped launch many of the initiatives we still celebrate today and defined what's Fiber today, refining text and stories to ensure that they are completely accurate, contributing to the podcast series and the artistic components as Coded Matters, apps, and the data booth. Data booth being an early experiment in collecting and revisualizing sort of data coming from installation work and recreating that as an artistic output. This Wednesday we said farewell to Sietse, but he will stay with us as we move on. I wanted to share this with you today in the remembrance of a dear friend and a Fiber co-founder, as I now believe he is also a fragile force. Finally, some words of wisdom to kick off the day. In the words of Dean Spade, our keynote lecturer, let's be gentle with ourselves and each other and fierce as we fight oppression. I wish you a great festival and I welcome our first guest of today under the guidance of Chloe Lula from Resident Visor. Welcome.
Okay. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. My name is Chloe. Thank you for being here and for having me. The first talk is going to be about psychedelic aesthetics, the subconscious, and how we create worlds that are kind of stand in antithesis, I guess, to a lot of mainstream music. And I'm joined by three panelists, producers, curators, writers who explore this in their work. And maybe we can start by just introducing yourselves.
Yeah, hello. My name is Eloa. I make music under my name Trois-Quatre system. You want that I introduce what I do?
Yeah, maybe if each of you could describe your creative practice. Yeah.
So my music's kind of blending between some bass music influence, techno, and also a lot of electroacoustic music and electroacoustic experimental practice. So at the end, it sounds a bit like something in between hypnotic music, but more I think about it more as a maze instead of a tunnel. So I really like to play with unpredictable unpredictable elements, happy accident, even in composition, production, and also during live set. So yeah, what can I say more? Don't know if you want.
That's good for now.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Elle Bickers. My artist name is LNR, and I'm a DJ and music journalist. And yeah, my practice mostly involves researching 90s dance music subcultures across the spheres of club, rave, and free party countercultural movements. I am author of my self-published book Biodegradable Soundsystem, which explores those very topics and often explores it across the UK hardcore continuum, which is coined by Simon Reynolds. I try and find these sort of like points of ambiguity and cross-pollination between different genres and styles across like hardcore, psychedelic, and experimental. And trying to sort of create, seeing where these scenes intersect and cross over. And then, as a DJ, my sound traverses, something that I refer to as dark side psychedelic hardcore with a K. And this is across a lot of music from dub sound system culture, from free party culture, and from the experimental scene as well.
My turn?
Yes.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Woody, also known as Woody92 under my DJ wing. I'm a DJ, label curator, worked a bit in fashion and doing some graphic design things. The label that I'm running is Omen Wapta, and we do, next to releasing music, we also do events in Garage North and around the globe. What else? Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my first question to all of you is, so much of what each of you do rewards patience and like patient listening, or like time spent examining like the history of free party culture. Do you see what you're doing as a reaction to what has become popular in the last few years?
Actually, I don't want to say this, but I hear it around, well, if I talk about myself, I hear it sometimes that people are inspired about what Omen Wapta or what I'm doing, which is the most biggest compliment I can get. But it comes, what you're saying, it comes from a certain like period, and it comes from things that I'm inspired of. So I didn't invent something new, it's just like a sort of reaction of what already is. So, sorry, what was the question again? Oh. I'm just like, ooh.
I guess if you feel that what you're doing, if your creative practice, which I think entails a lot of nuance and patience, listening, if you feel that that's a reaction to, you know, like a culture that demands like attention.
Well, I think in general, like in the whole of the creative scene or like the creative environment in like in music and art, I think patience is the most important thing. It helps a lot to sort of go to certain places, but also to take a step, take it easy and like be patient in like in the direction that you want to go. Of course, it's like, well, yeah, I think that.
I want to something that you mentioned earlier, which is about how you are you're not creating because there's something that came before you. And I think in our contemporary scene, people really value the kind of world that you've created and the work that you do. I want to mention a quote from a conversation I had with Sebastian Vaughan, who is 69 dB from Spiral Tribe, who are a legendary three-party sound system from the 90s, who started in the UK. And he's very big on saying, I am not creating, I am responding. And I think a lot of what our scene is influenced by, in part, is this kind of Spiral Tribe influence. But also even before that, he's talking about the black music communities, cultures and heritage that come from Chicago and Detroit, that come from jazz even. And I think going back to this notion of patience, I think a lot of this lineage comes from the art of improvisation, and the art of improvisation can only be practiced with patience and not sort of like conforming to a trend or conforming to what's big or what's new. I think it is a craft that requires a lot of like time and dedication. And I think improvisation can also be attributed not only to making music or playing music, but also to researching about music and exploring those cultures. And something that I'm very interested by is subversion to systems. And I think as part of an underground scene, this is always something that we should be considering and being careful about how we present that and the message that we're trying to get across. So I think subversion always requires a level of patience, a level of not conforming to the status quo. Actually, it is to resist the status quo.
Well, maybe we can stay with you for a moment. For if there's anybody here maybe who's not familiar with the free techno, free party scene, Spiral Tribe, lineage, can you describe the ethos around that and what drew you to start documenting it?
Yes. Just stop me if I go on for too long.
Please continue.
Well, funnily enough, I first came across the free party movement via a label called Acid Anonymous, who are actually from the Netherlands, and came after Spiral Tribe. This was like an accidental meeting with the music and the sound. And it's very fast, around, not strictly speaking, but kind of 160 to 180 BPM, very hard, trippy, psychedelic, hardcore, let's say. It doesn't have this kind of big saturation that, say, the GABA kicks have. It's something that is actually very deep and atmospheric, but with very harsh sound over the top, and a lot of intricate layers. This kind of led me to start investigating this music and exploring this music more, and that led me to looking into the research behind Spiral Tribe. And they are a three-party sound system that started in the UK in around 1990, 1991, and they came together as a way to sort of try and lift the veil I mean, it wasn't their intention in the beginning, but what they ended up doing was lifting the veil off of the systems of austerity that was controlling, that the government was controlling people in the UK. They had been under a Thatcherite government for the past 10 years, I think it had been. And people were in a lot of poverty, a lot of disarray, and this is when the rave scene really broke out. And they weren't just throwing these mega raves, which was kind of happening and was actually became monetized. They really connected with the traveler culture and the hippie free party traveler culture. So a lot of anarchists, a lot of hippies, a lot of punks, a lot of ravers all suddenly came together around the communion of a sound system. And their ethos was really about pushing the sound forward. So they weren't interested in looking at sound that had already been. They were looking at sound that was progressive and innovative at that point in time. And around the early 90s in the UK, this was UK hardcore, UK breakbeat that was really taking off. And they took it in such a way that was very dark side, very twisted, very hard, and relentlessly through these parties week in, week out, which was attracting people from all sorts of different backgrounds. It was attracting working class kids from London. It was attracting middle class art school kids, and they were all coming together. I think a point that one of the founders, Mark Angelo Harrison, mentioned to me in a conversation a couple of years ago is that one of the first parties, or maybe the first party that they did, was in an area in Westminster, in West London, where a British politician had basically started changing some laws and was, kicking out families who could not pay their rent, and basically started super gentrifying the area and trying to get Labour voters out of the area. So then you had a lot of empty buildings here, and Spiral Tribe came in as a way to kind of subvert this sort of conservatism that was coming in. And they wanted to reclaim this space as something that these kids could come back to. And then going a bit further afield, and what they're kind of most notoriously known for, which I don't think is what they necessarily want to be known for, but they were pulled into it, was their involvement in a free festival at Castle Morton Common in 1992, I think. And this attracted 30,000 free festival ravers, and the police could not shut it down. But essentially what happened is it led to the most expensive criminal case of that type in history. I think it was a £2 million court case, where none of them were convicted for keeping the party going, because they were the last sound system to shut down. But this essentially meant that they received all of this media attention, but they wanted to flip this media attention to be about lifting the veil off of this system and be how ridiculous is this that we don't get to utilize this free space that is not for the governments to privatize. And then, eventually they became sort of exiled from the UK. And what we see in free party culture now in Central Europe is a big part of what Spiral Tribe inspired many, many sound systems to start building their own sound systems and to start taking up this free space and to run these free techno parties that became known as technovals, which is still going on today. And these technovals are really a way of sending a message to our governments that this free space is ours, and it's people have, no matter what background they are from, have a right to dance, they have a right to experience sound with full accessibility, with being able for it to be free to access, because not everybody can access these spaces. So yeah.
And it's actually crazy how fast they can throw a party in 48 hours with, well, sometimes maybe, I think 6,000 people or 8,000 people, maybe more. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. In like 48 hours, completely turning like a space, like a field, fully into a festival site, actually. Yeah.
Oh, super inspiring. Who pays for like putting this on? I mean, in a free party, like I assume there are like some production costs associated with it.
I think that's a bit of a mystery, but I think the most important thing is that it has, I think if you talk with Sebastian, money is not like the thing he's like very into. Of course, you need to finance the sound system. So I think most of the people that are into this free party world, they have like a side job, or they have like a normal job, and in the weekends they build their speakers and they travel where they want to, as a sort of modern traveler, basically.
Yeah.
So I think, especially sometimes it's also a bit romanticized, I must say, because sometimes it can be very like dirty and very like heavy in a way. But like the over like elapsing idea behind this is very beautiful. But I think like the financial part is just like, yeah, you need to have a bit of benzene, or like a van, speakers, a record player, or a vinyl player, put it in the car, go as fast as you can to a hidden place somewhere and just throw a party. That's basically what it is.
I think the landscape is quite different now to what it was back in the 90s and earlier 2000s. Costs were lower and there was a bigger mobilization of these crews, so you could get a lot of different people chipping in for a lot of different things, whether it's for the truck or whether for the fuel or for the sound system. And essentially the way these finances circulate is that they're hosting parties, people are coming to the parties for free, but they can also donate a small amount, and they always survived off donations. But the thing is, squatting was much more commonplace back then and much more accessible, so it was much easier to travel. And also then once there was police intervention, they could use the donations to like pay the fines and things like this. Nowadays, the fines are enormous. Like, I know people who have like 300k fines to their name, and that will be following them for life. And squatting is so much less accessible, so there's kind of like a new generation of free party systems. I actually want to give a particular mention to something in the UK that is going on right now called Resonance. This is a crew built by SNF Soundsystems. It is like a sort of decentralized model of sound system building where an anonymous number of people, but let's say it's a very big number of people, have contributed their money and their skills to building a wall of sound that is like the biggest we have seen in the UK for like an extremely long time, bearing in mind technovals, and a technoval is something that is an enormous wall of sound to keep the party going, a bit like a festival style, but these walls of sound can be like 30 feet long. This started in France. This never actually started in the UK, but now what we're seeing in the UK is this big mobilization of anonymous crews coming together, and police are now unable to shut these free parties down. It kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because I'm from the UK, if you can't tell. And,
No.
And it's the first time in my lifetime of being interested in underground music that we've seen it to this scale. So I do think there is a new sort of motivation and a new mobilization in the new generation that's coming together that we haven't seen for a very long time.
Interesting. Well, moving away from the politics, which I find really fascinating, but more kind of into the aesthetics of what you are examining with your work. I thought maybe, Woody, we could talk a little bit about your label and your music, because I know, because you're a trained graphic designer, a lot of what you do is informed by symbols, by images, by objects. You've said in the past that you're very inspired by Jung. Maybe can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm not a trained graphic designer, so let's clear that out.
Okay.
And I'm really happy to, actually. Sometimes I am not. Good example of, like, if you're pressing records, I think with all the records that I pressed, I have always like something that's like not that I want to. So I would love to be a skilled graphic designer, but I can't say it. It's not before my name. Anyway, yeah, I mean, sorry, again, what was the question? I'm just a bit like...
It's okay. I was asking about how imagery and symbols inform your work.
I mean, I was already inspired by like symbols and like the meaning of symbols. You know, you see it in religion, you see it everywhere. I mean, because of symbols, you can sort of make your way into cities, for example. But also to refer back to Spiral Tribe, I think Spiral Tribe also created a sort of like movement also in their visual aesthetics. I studied fashion design, and I learned throughout my practice that like looking towards things is like the most important thing, and that can be everywhere, you know. So I always I'm always inspired by all sorts of things, you know. So I refer that back into the things that I'm pushing out with the label. There's no I can't really grasp what is like. This is actually the thing that I'm inspired the most by, but I think
it's intuitive.
Yeah, I think it's intuitive, but also like if you refer it back to Spiral Tribe, you see as well this sort of like signing tribe-y visual side. It's very black and white, very DIY, very punk actually. And when I discovered Spiral Tribe, or like the whole techno visual identity, I wanted to do something more that's referring more towards the more deepness and the more like psychedelic side of it. If people think about psychedelic, it's mostly always like the circle that goes like, you know, that's always the thing that people refer to when it's of course not everybody, but and I just like try to make something different, you know, and do it my own way. And now I find a sort of like the tool to actually do it. So yeah.
Could you give an example maybe of how something from your environment or a symbol directly inspired? Well,
I think especially like the whole Spiral Tribe, like it's funny that we talk constantly about Spiral Tribe, but that's actually, it's really actually a sort of the core and the fundamental part, like thing that I'm actually, that's the biggest influence for me. Of course, other artists and other like movements as well, but I think like they were like the first who actually come up with this sort of music, but also like the visual side, it's very like DIY, you know. You see it also at Coil or Trouble and Crystals, who actually really try to create something like a tribe for people, like sort of make something completely new. But yeah.
I was reading that where you grew up, there was I guess like a Stonehenge sculpture.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's constantly been like a reference.
Yeah, true. So next to my house, and it's always coming back. I just biked through like next to it when I traveled to Amsterdam. But it's just, when I was a kid, I always saw this Stonehenge thing, you know. It's like a sort of Stonehenge in the middle of the neighborhood where I'm living in Delft, and it's so weird because it's like they take something out of history and place it in like a place where it has no meaning at all. Funny enough, I had a conversation like a few weeks ago with somebody who's actually living at that place, and I said, isn't it beautiful? And she was like, I fucking hate this. It's like the most ugliest thing in the world. And I was like, huh? But it's so like the contrast between modern and like historical. It's like it for me it hits me. But also to refer back to the old psychedelic part, like Stonehenge was back in the days, like a place, like a sacred place for a lot of people, you know. So to actually put that in a place where it has no intentional meaning, it's sort of like weird, you know. That's also like, yeah, that's what I really like this sort of weird kind of contrast between two worlds. And yeah, I also try to do that with the label, you know, also with Omen Wapta, like the now it goes more into like one direction, but I try also to like in terms of the visuals, I try to sort of make a contrast out of like the music and the artwork, you know.
Yeah, no, you've done a great job with it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. And well, we haven't really talked much about your practice because you're also looking a lot to your environment. I know you use a lot of field recordings. Maybe can you tell us about like what feeds your inspiration with your work?
About this practice of using free recordings and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, because when I was starting doing music, it was a bit like separate. I was starting with my friend going through Ableton, and the other part I was going to school about composition, electroacoustic stuff, song creation, and so it was kind of fun because it was almost the same tool but totally different history, totally different music at the end. And so at some point I was trying to mix and blending these two stuff to use it more audio recording using the microphone as an instrument and all possibilities as a contact microphone, this kind of mic you can put on your face, and when you're scratching you hear it, or like it's always inspired me to use this audio because it's not as you can do many stuff with it, but in another way, like if you transform a free recording, immediately you're hearing that something is a bit weird, like you hear that something is transforming the sound. So I love to use this kind of sounds because it's not as plastic and easy to blend compared to more synthetic sources. Also, I was always contrast and making weird combination. Weird. There's always some things that really inspire me in my music. So that I'm not like about psychedelism and stuff. I'm not like really into this kind of stuff. But I think the doors that the way that opened me this kind of music was more this idea you can really put random sound, really diverse, like unpredictable effects and stuff, and with using more electroacoustic and microphone techniques, I think for me it's a really good way to incorporate some different and surprise.
It seems like you are all in some capacity, I guess, like looking to the past and bringing it into like something new. What is, I guess, one thing you feel that you've taken from, I don't know, maybe from something happening in like free, like Spiral Tribe culture, or something you've looked to in the past that you feel we could apply more to the present, like either culturally or in terms of music that's being made right now?
Yeah. Actually, you mentioned Throbbing Gristle and Coil as a sort of connection to these visual aesthetics and the design with Spiral Tribe. And something that always has drawn me to the Free Party movement is this number 23. And the number 23 is, it doesn't have a meaning. It's not even really a symbol.
It's actually the W.
Yeah, yeah. And there's also, it goes back further than the this community and also the industrial music scene of 80s Britain. But the Temple of Psychic Youth were using this in their sort of occult magic cult, let's say. But when you trace back the 23 number even further, you actually go back all the way to the 1950s, and you go back to a pseudoscience religion called Discordianism, which is basically, it's coined by this woman, Carrie Thorley, and somebody else, who basically, they were like spreading misinformation to subvert authoritarian systems. And I mean, that has a very eerie ring to it now because we know who's spreading misinformation now. But back then it was a countercultural movement, and it was something that was brought into popular culture and into theatre and into music and into literary movements as a way to get people to stop following the status quo, and to start actually like tuning into themselves and being like, okay, what do I believe? And this 23 was avidly used in this movement, in this countercultural movement, and it's part of something called chaos movements. And this is this view that the world is nothing but chaos and there is no order and disorder. And there was also a group of people from the 60s called it was Ken Casey and his Merry Pranksters. This was directly influenced by Discordianism, and they basically embarked on like a hippie commune journey across the United States, engaging in like psychoactive substance use. Ken Casey actually came from the CIA LSD trials, and it was basically the step into hedonism as we know now in our psychedelic music communities, the psytrance communities. This hippie movement, and it was all about engaging in this chaos and embracing this chaos. And I don't think Discordianism back then in the 60s really translates to today's climate, especially with what is going on in our sort of alt-right spaces. But I do think this re-engagement with chaos is something that our communities and our underground could really benefit from, as I think the less we conform to uniformity, I think the more creativity we will uncover.
Mm-hmm.
I think I learned a little bit of patience, what we referred to like earlier on. It's just like, and I really like the fact that they're creating the whole time things, and don't follow exactly the status quo.
Wait, sorry, they meaning...
Sorry?
You said that they?
Yeah, like the whole Spiral Tribe movement. What I learned from that is also like, don't follow the rules and just do what you think is good, or what you actually think is interesting, Yeah.
I think the fact that this platform is an example of how to support artists who are doing something more experimental.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, is there anything maybe I didn't ask you about, like your practice or like, I don't know, psychedelia in general that you're itching to talk about?
I think no, I don't think so. Actually, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Then I think we have a few minutes for any questions from the audience. Okay. No questions.
I think there's one.
I'm trying to form it into a question. But I really love that idea of rave as like an extreme when a system is crumbling, as we are feeling it now, Because actually that would be really beautiful.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just like in my head.
Yeah, no, and I think what is so terrifying about like the alt-right is that they have a really clever way of like using things that existed in counterculture, such as like this spreading of misinformation that used to be subversive, and now, I mean, they're recontextualizing it as subversive, but actually in the context of our psychedelic communities, something else that's happening right now is, for the first time since like the 1970s, the Trump administration has pledged to reform psychedelic drug policy, which the sort of people who have been trying to push this for decades are like, hang on a second. And this is like a direct response to militarization, and they've basically found that this psychoactive substance, ibogaine, can be used to treat like post-military veterans, and there's now like a very dark twist on like pushing psychedelics into conservatism and how they're being used in war. And of course, like definitely it's a good thing that they can find a way to cure PTSD for veterans, but it's like there's a very conservative way that the alt-right are now taking our psychedelic culture, which used to be anti-war and always has been anti-war, but it's now becoming militarized. And yeah, I don't have a specific answer for you around how these two things come together, but I think being aware and acknowledging and reading about what is going on outside of our communities and our circles means that we prevent ourselves from siloing ourselves off from being like thinking that we exist in a utopia, because we don't. And I think also these utopias is something that's come out of the psychedelic hedonism of the 90s, and this when the hippie movement kind of clashed with the new age spirituality, and which actually has a lot of individualism around it. So I think just like always staying conscious and staying aware of what's going on outside of our like niche bubbles is also really important.
I hope I'm loud enough. My question was more about this idea of using the dance floor or rave culture as an act of subversion, which I find fascinating. But if you go to mainstream festivals or even popular nightclubs now, it seems more like an area of conformity, where everyone's trying to subscribe to a certain dress code or way of behaving. So my question is, given this tension between conformity on the dance floor, which is what modern rave culture looks like, and its history of subversion, where can we find that authentic balance where it becomes more of this act of subversion in a safe space rather than, again, becoming like another Coachella where you just have influencers kind of strutting along. So where can we find these authentic spaces and really stick to the true origins of raving?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I discovered that at Garage North at my party, to be honest. I'm not gonna sort of like, hey, you should come there now, but actually you should. But the thing, but if you don't think it's not my party, what I really like about that party is that people come from all over the globe, and they come for the right reasons. They come for listening to good music, or interesting music, basically. And what you see is that what I really like about that is that it's just like one sort of big hub of, I hate this word, but like nerds who are in this sort of hole, like dancing with each other and create like a sort of new movement, you know? So I think everywhere in Europe or somewhere else, they throw this kind of parties. Also, like what you're saying about the English like tech movement.
Oh yeah, resonance.
Resonance, you
yeah.
know. So I think because there's so much you can grasp nowadays in terms of music, you know, you see also that people are going and go to a certain event just to be there with like-minded people, you know. So I think we don't need a new Coachella, but we need more of that kind of like things, you know. And I think I'm optimistic about this. I think that will happen because there's like a big variety of music, but still, like, you see that, yeah, everybody has their own like taste and go and do that kind of things, you know. If that answers your question a little bit.
Do we have time for another, like one more question?
Yeah, except Eloy has to
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to leave.
Yeah, sorry.
There's a flight to catch.
Ah, okay. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you for being here. Sorry, I don't remember whose hand I saw.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something related to what you mentioned about this like stone thing that's in the middle of the office and how symbols kind of can lose their meaning and how can that be very beautiful. This is something that interests me a lot, and I think it has to do, at least in my experience, with the psychedelic experience a lot as well.
Yeah.
Like, it is the psychedelic experience for me is a place where like symbols and their meanings become like detached and attached again in really weird ways. And how this is a very delightful thing, but at the same time, stripping symbols of their meaning has a danger to it.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, the right wing has done this for a long time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, I mean, you guys' opinions on like the delights, but also the dangers of doing this to symbols, because I think both are really interesting things, like attaching symbols and meaning and detaching them and making them really fluid, but this can lead to dark places.
I think so too, but my opinion is that this will always happen, you know, and that's a really sad thing to know. But you see it also, like, that's not, I mean, the interesting part of taking a logo or a symbol out of something, well, the biggest like example of that is like the Hinduistic, I think it's swastika. You see it everywhere in Asia. I saw it in like big Buddha temples, like, and we are so like the Western culture is so like forced on the other one, you know, which is like the most horrible sign in basically in the world. I think you can. There's no. Well, at least I don't know how or what. How to say it? How you can change this? You know. Yeah. To be honest, I don't have really like an answer on your question. I think it's. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think there is this like, or at least this was something very avid of the punk scene, and I think I don't really, I think it's difficult to say that we exist in like a punk scene now. I don't think it really happens in the same way, but there was always this way of taking a symbol that had been recontextualized or repurposed by like one political side and then recontextualized by another. For example, like the St. George Dragon of England, like that was like it used to be. It's actually like a symbol of the beauty of the land, but then it became like this sort of weaponized symbol of like the monarchy in England, and then it's getting like. So everything is getting recontextualized back and forward depending on which group of people gets their hands on this symbol and actually wants to say something about it. So I think as long as you've got a message to say about something, then you can use it. But I think if we're looking specifically at like psychedelic communities, I do think there has been a big wave of extracting like Indian and other like South Asian symbols and cultural artifacts into aesthetics, into artwork, into iconography, into sound even. I do believe that we are moving away from the very overt use of it that you see in the 90s. You don't have to look much further on Discogs to kind of understand that. But I think there is important work being done by PhD researchers looking into the relation between like ritualism in these cultures versus like the rhythmic structures that are used in techno, for example. And I think finding parallels and then understanding where the line can be drawn to kind of like use these symbols, whether it's in aesthetics, in design, in sound, is important. But it's important that we're cross-pollinating with these cultures rather than just like encroaching and placing ourselves in the center of these cultures. Yeah, so I think extractionism is bad, but cross-pollination is good.
Nobody else? I don't know. I saw it. No. Okay, then. Yeah, thank you so much for all of your great questions and for all of your really insightful commentary. And
Thank you.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.